Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thank you. I am Jonathan Leib from Old Dominion University here in Norfolk. You've probably heard about 27 different pronunciations, unless you're a local. Norfolk. Okay. Norfolk. That's good enough? Yeah. It takes you a while. If you hear anybody say Norfolk, you know they are not from around here. So I'd like to welcome you to Norfolk. And also thank you for letting me speak. I'm a political geographer, not a cartographer. So hopefully I will not offend anybody with anything that I say or don't say. Okay? All right. Well, in the automobile era of the 20th and early 21st centuries, one of the most visible expressions of a person's place of residence is found on the license plate attached to their vehicle. And for the past century, governments at a variety of geographic scales have been active in the regulation and registration of the automobile. So, for example, in 1903, Massachusetts became the first U.S. state to issue a standard license plate on which the state of registration was clearly marked. And by 1918, all of the then U.S. states and Canadian provinces had issued place-identified plates. As Tim Edensor, as among others, has argued, though, beyond simply facilitating mobility, automobiles have become bound up in the formation of national identity, and governments have played an important role in this process. Indeed, within several decades of the first issuance of license plates, state and provincial governments in North America, through the use of pictures and slogans, began to use their license plates as mobile advertising signs, promoting local economies and tourism. Early examples of the use of slogans include Prince Edward Island's 1928 license plate promoting its two leading agricultural products, seed potatoes and foxes. South Carolina's promotion of its iodine industry, and New York and California's competing claims to the 1939 World's Fair. Pictures were also used for these purposes as well, including Arizona's promotion of its cattle industry, Idaho's potatoes, Georgia's peaches, and New Hampshire's man in the mountain. State symbols also became prevalent, everything from the Pennsylvania Keystone, the California Bear, and the New Mexico Zia. And, starting in the 1920s, maps became a popular symbol which state governments began to imprint on their license plates, as seen here in Arkansas, Florida, and Illinois. So, in my presentation today, I want to focus on the map, this latter type of picture and symbol. And what I want to focus on is its use on license plates in various parts of the world in the late 1900s and early 2000s as a way of advancing, reinforcing, and contesting national identity and promoting geopolitical agendas. So this is very preliminary research, so all of this is tentative and all the usual caveats. But what I want to do first is talk a little bit about a couple of concepts from political geography, which can be useful in this project, the idea of banal nationalism and critical geopolitics. After that, I'll talk a little bit about the origins and the history of maps on license plates. And then in the rest of my presentation, I will explore three different ways in which identity, nationalism, geopolitics, and license plate and maps on license plates intersect. First, in terms of the use of maps to promote national and regional identity, the use of maps to press geopolitical aims and territorial claims to territory, and third, to dispute or disrupt our common notions of sovereignty, and in the extreme, to promote separatist visions. All right. Well, with that, let me just talk briefly about a couple of concepts to get us started. Imprinted with the place of issuance, license plates provide a way for a government to craft an image of that place that is visible daily to much of its population. One concept useful in understanding these attempts to create facts on the bumper is Michael Billig's concept of banal nationalism. The idea that, along with the spectacular acts of nationalism which occur elsewhere, nationalism is reinforced in the West, as well as elsewhere, every day in myriad small and subtle ways that become commonplace and therefore unremarkable. Over the past decade or so, geographers have examined the banal nationalism inscribed into commonplace items, such as postage stamps, currency, flags, and street names. Referring to national postage stamps, Paulina Ranto argues that such government-issued items, quote, offer the national elite of a state direct mundane contact with its citizens. And in this regard, as I have noted elsewhere, quote, the slogans on and designs of license plates provide one very visible means for governments to mold expression of these identities tied directly to the place imprinted on that plate. Along with banal nationalism, ideas from popular geopolitics, the construction of scripts that mold common perceptions of political events, as Jason Dittmer has defined it, is also important here for a full understanding of both national identities and global orders. Constructing these scripts through their license plates provide governments with one way to mold common perceptions of national identity and their geopolitical objectives. As an example of this, as an example of banal nationalism in popular geopolitics, take the slogans found on the license plates of Panama. In the early 1970s, Panamanian plates carried the slogan, Bridge of the World, using the English translation, reflecting an imagining of its position connecting North and South America and the Atlantic and Pacific. However, by the mid-1970s, as nationalism grew over growing frustration with US control of the Panama Canal, the slogan on the license plates changed to Sovereign Panama. In the early 1980s, plates celebrated the completion of the treaty with the US that would hand over the canal to Panama with the slogan, United Towards the Future. With US pressure on Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega building in the late 1980s, in 1989 a new slogan was introduced, Panama 2000 Total Sovereignty, a reminder that under the canal treaties, the US was to withdraw from Panama just before the beginning of that year. Well, we remember what happened, at least some of us do. In December 1989, the US came in and overthrew the Noriega regime. Veterans of that get their own license plate, of course. After Noriega's overthrow, Panamanian plates changed again, this time with the slogan, Free Panama, Peace and Justice. Now, according to license plate historian Tim Steniford, these plates were made prior to Noriega's overthrow, and with pressure building against Noriega throughout 1989 from the US, as well as growing internal opposition, the plates may have been intended to script Panama as a free sovereign state and Noriega's regime as peaceful and just. However, as Steniford notes, after the overthrow, the slogan of Free Panama took on a double meaning, become a sign of celebration in the country of Noriega's ouster. Thus, in the slogans on license plates on cars throughout the country, we have these changing images of Panama's place in the world, whether as a bridge, as united, as achieving total sovereignty, or as a free, peaceful, and just state. Now, along with slogans and pictures, maps have been imprinted on license plates as a way of promoting identity and geopolitical objectives as well. And as we're aware, national maps, which show the boundaries of the state and all the territory included and excluded from the state, provide one way in which states seek to represent its terrain to its population and that of other states. And such maps can be used to co-opt Brian Harley's well-known phrase as geopolitical signs to create a sense of unity, identity within a state and to promote a state's territorial vision to its own population and that of its neighbors, right? And of course, how states are portrayed on maps is not necessarily simple and straightforward, as we all know. As many have pointed out, maps and the ways they are drawn are part of a general discourse of power. For example, Don Ziegler, here in the audience, in his study of 1990s post-Soviet national cartography, shows how through the use of persuasive cartography, maps were produced by former Soviet states and satellites to highlight their new sovereignty status, their links to pre-Cold War historical periods, and their projected positionality as being closer to the rest of Europe and farther away from Russia. This map from Belarus out of Don's article, you can see got as little of Russia in there as possible in terms of showing Belarus's relation with the rest of Europe. All right. Well, with that, let me talk a little bit first about the history of maps on license plates, okay? So maps first appeared on license plates in the United States within 20 years after the first government-issued plates. The first, as far as I can tell, was a large stylized map of Volusia County, Florida, which appeared on that county's 1917 issue. The state of Florida did not issue statewide plates until 1918. Before that, cities and counties around the state issued their own plates. And Florida was the first state to emboss a map on its statewide plate in 1923, followed by Arkansas in 1924 and Illinois in 1927. Other states and jurisdictions soon followed, ranging from Pennsylvania to Montana and even Puerto Rico. Especially notable in this regard are the plates that were issued in Tennessee and Kansas for years, which were cut out in the shape of the states themselves. Starting in the 1970s, advancements in license plate making technology allowed for US states and territories to create more elaborate backgrounds for their plates, and maps became one area to be featured, such as seen here in Indiana, the Kentucky Cloud Plate, and the most recent plate from the US Virgin Islands. As well, smaller renditions of state maps have been used in numerous states to divide up a plate's registration number. Okay? And finally, the rise across the country of literally thousands of optional specialty plates have led to a proliferation of maps celebrating everything from New Mexico State University to Indianapolis's annual Black Exposition to South Carolina's official state dance, the Shag. In addition, optional specialty plates have allowed drivers to proclaim their interest in specific regions of their states through maps, such as Virginia's Eastern Shore and Nevada's Atomic Testing Range. But the use of maps of subnational jurisdictions on license plates extends beyond the United States, as shown here in plates from the Mexican state of Nuevo León and the Australian state of Queensland. These last two plates brings us to the point that while the use of slogans, pictures, and maps on place name imprinted license plates may have started in North America, in recent decades these have become more common features on license plates in other parts of the world as well. And it is to how these maps are used on license plates in other parts of the world that I want to turn to for the rest of this talk. Let me talk a bit about this idea of plates, license plates as a way of promoting national and regional identity. While the US and Canada started imprinting pictures and slogans on their license plates in the early to mid-1900s, this practice has only become common in the rest of the world over the past quarter century. Having said that, we can find the use of pictures and slogans in the past to promote events that the state deemed important, such as the celebration of late 19th century Filipino nationalist hero Jose Rizal in 1961, or Mexico's hosting of the 1968 Summer Olympics. Other slightly more subtle nationalist symbols have been used, such as the Red Star separator on pre-1990s Yugoslavia plates, which I should have brought a picture of it, because I have several examples where after the fall of Yugoslavia, people took razor blades to scrape off the red paint on their plates. And sometimes the drivers do fight back against these top-down scriptings of identity, such as Dominican Republic drivers who cut off the era of Trujillo slogans from the tops of their 1962 license plates following the dictator's assassination. Right? However, pictures and place identifiers became more prominent on world license plates in the early 1990s. Most obviously in the license plates of the newly independent countries which formed out of the Soviet Union, such as Lithuania and Belarus, and their Eastern European satellites, such as Poland and Romania, where flags of these states became prominent features. National flags also started to appear on license plates throughout Africa south of the Sahara, as seen here in examples from Tanzania, Burundi, and Ghana. And in the early 2000s, we begin to see the appearance of maps on national plates, either as large background features, these are just a few examples in Nigeria, Venezuela, Haiti, and Panama, or as smaller features, as is the case here in Côte d'Ivoire. It's an outline map of the country. Or, for example, take the plates of Benin, Burkina Faso, and Guinea-Bissau in West Africa, which combine all three elements. We have the place identification, we have the map, and inside the map, we have a representation of the flag of the country. But over the past 25 years, license plates have not only been used to promote national identity, but in some areas of the world, they have been used in part to identify and promote a larger multinational regional identity. The first such type are plates of member states of the European Union, which contain a country identification code in the EU Circle of Stars. These plates first started appearing in the early 1990s and then spread over time throughout the EU. As well, starting in 2015, 4 member states of the South American Free Trade Association, Mercosur, began issuing a common license plate. Plates in Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay began to be issued in a common format, carrying the organization's name and flag, which features the Southern Cross constellation. Okay. Along with the national flag and name of the country of issue. Given that Mercosur does not issue a region-wide currency, the new license plates have become one of the most visible expressions of regional cooperation. For our purposes, the most interesting of the regional organizations' license plates are those of the countries belonging to CEMAC, the Central African Economic and Monetary Community, which started operating in 1999. CEMAC has 6 member states: Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. While several analysts have suggested that regional cooperation among CEMAC members has been limited at best, in 2001, CEMAC ministers agreed that member states would require drivers to use license plates with a common format and color scheme, and which would contain the CEMAC seal, which prominently features a map of Africa with a star in the center. The international country code for each member state also appears on the plate. However, the CEMAC seal is as prominent or more prominent on 5 of the 6 member states' plates than is the country identification code. The 6th member state, Gabon, features not only the CEMAC seal on its plates, but also the place identifier, flag, and map of Gabon as well. Well, beyond reinforcing identities, states and groups can also use their license plates to promote geopolitical aims, whether to reinforce a change of status as a tangible outward symbol of a change in territorial control, or to press geopolitical claims to territory. So, for example, take the case of Grenada, whose 1974 license plate promoted the country's recent independence, or the Dutch side of the Caribbean island of St. Martin, which celebrated its new country status, air quotes, on its plates in 2011 with a map of the island and the slogan, "Congratulations, Country St. Martin." In 2010, St. Martin's status, In 2010, St. Martin's status changed from being a Dutch territory to what the Dutch refer to as country status, which, while giving St. Martin control over its internal affairs, it's still under Dutch control in terms of foreign affairs. As well, despite the fact that the map on the plate displays an undivided island of St. Martin, the Dutch control only the southern half of the island. The northern half of the island is French territory with French license plates, as seen here. Okay. So at the same time, license plates have been used as a tangible outward symbol of a wartime change of control, used to attempt to create, reflect, and legitimize new claims to territory. So, for example, during wartime, new plates can be issued in lands occupied by an invading country in the format of the occupying country, thereby providing another way of normalizing that state's claim to territory. For example, in the immediate aftermath of Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990, new license plates were issued to Kuwaiti drivers that were in the style of Iraq's plates. In April 2014, Russian state television prominently featured drivers in Crimea exchanging their Ukrainian plates for Russian plates in the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Actually, let me skip over a little bit here in time. All right, so we'll skip over that. Now, one way in which states press their geopolitical claims to territory is through promoting maps of their states, which include lands which are not internationally recognized as such or whose claim is questioned by the rest of the world, as in maps and, in this case, souvenir license plates of Chilean Antarctica. When printed on their license plates, these maps provide daily reminders to its country's citizens of territorial claims. Such was the case with Venezuela's late 1990s, early 2000s plate, which prominently featured a map of the country. What makes this map intriguing for our purposes is that the easternmost part of the map is striped. This area is the region of Essequibo, which is claimed by Venezuela, but actually currently makes up the western two-thirds of the country of Guyana. Venezuela has claimed the Essequibo off and on for a century, with Venezuelan maps showing it as the Essequibo Reclamation Zone, though few recognize the claim. And in recent years, Venezuela has pressed this claim again to the Essequibo, as large-scale oil and natural gas reserves have been found just off the coast of this region. if I have time. The final group of license plates that I want to talk about challenge our very understanding of the concept of sovereignty, a concept upon which the current international state system and world political map is based. Let me talk about a couple of different ways in which sovereignty is challenged through map license plates. First, in terms of groups whose recognition occurs outside our common understanding of sovereignty, in this case, federally recognized Native American tribes in the United States. And second, separatist movements who want to break away from their current states and form their own independent states. First, because license plates in North America are government-issued representations of places, people who exist outside the dominant North American political geographical framework have created and issued plates to promote, present, and represent their territory. The leading example involves the issuance of distinctive license plates in the United States by Native American tribes. And this has been a major battle in the courts over the past 40 years. Starting in 1974 with the Red Lake Chippewa Band in northern Minnesota, approximately 60 Native American tribes today in 10 states issue their own license plates, which are separate from the plates of the states in which their nation's territory is located. These plates are usually distinctive in design, with many containing symbols, seals, or language that promote tribal identity. And if they carry a state designation, they do so to allow out-of-state police to be able to identify the plates. In addition to these symbols, maps of the nation's territory have also been represented on tribal plates, as in the case of the aforementioned Red Lake Chippewas and the Ute Mountain tribe located in the Four Corners region. At the same time, because license plates are representative of a place, breakaway regions claiming to be independent, though not necessarily recognized as such by the rest of the world, have also issued plates to their residents as a way of representing their legitimacy. So, for example, new plates were issued to cars in Katanga when it broke away from Congo in the early 1960s. New license plates have been issued in recent years in Somaliland in northwestern Somalia. As well, license plates containing the breakaway region's flags have been issued in Russian-backed separatist areas, including Transnistria in Moldova, South Ossetia in Georgia, and most recently, new plates have appeared in the Donetsk People's Republic of eastern Ukraine. And for a brief period, Islamic State got into the act, issuing license plates to cars, taxis, and commercial vehicles in areas around Mosul. However, before we get lulled into a sense of American exceptionalism, there are various separatist groups within the US who see themselves as existing outside of the government who, as a result, do not feel obligated to register their vehicles with the state, and instead have created and attempted to use their own license plates. Two such groups include maps of their proposed territory on their plates. First, radical elements within the Republic of Texas separatist movement have tried at various times over the past 20 years to drive with their own designed Republic of Texas plates, which include the group's flag and a map of Texas in the blue and yellow colors of the 1836 Republic of Texas flag. Indeed, geographer Richard Francaviglia has argued that over time, the shape of Texas, the outline map of the state, has become an ingrained part of Texas identity. And here's an example of such a plate in use, or at least attempting to be in use. The person was arrested and convicted. Okay. While in Hawaii in recent decades, several native Hawaiian groups have proclaimed an independent kingdom of Hawaii. One of the most visible outward expressions of the independence movement has been the use of Kingdom of Hawaii license plates by some members, which show maps of either the entire island chain or individual islands prominently featured in the background. All right. I'm out of time, so at this point, let me conclude there. Great. Thank you.